It began with a violent clash between the police and a suspected criminal, and it led to a city's worst riots in recent memory. It's not Los Angeles last spring, but New York just last month. But there's more behind what happened on the streets of New York City that we are going to tell you about tonight. And it reaches far beyond Manhattan to another place, in fact, to another country. Harold Dow brings us a tale of two cities bound together by dreams, by drugs, and increasingly by death.
July 4th, 1992. New York's Dominican community in Washington Heights explodes in outrage.
Gunshots, you hear that? That's gunshots. Everyone's nervous. You don't know where the gunshots are coming from. People are burning things, throwing things at us all left and right.
You know who they messing with, you know? Dominicans. They know better.
Get on! 2 deaths, over 100 arrests, 69 injuries, 14 buildings torched, 121 vehicles set afire. It all started with the death of this man, 24-year-old Jose Kiko Garcia. Garcia was killed in the hallway of this apartment building by undercover police officer Michael O'Keefe. Police officials said Garcia was killed after he pulled a gun. Members of the community say Officer Michael O'Keefe planted the gun and then murdered Garcia only because he was a Dominican.
They got license to kill Dominican. They has to be stopped.
You don't see this in downtown. You don't see people getting shot at downtown. Only up here. Why? Because we Spanish? Because we black?
The killer with a badge. He come in here, rob Kiko, make him to put his hand like this, break his fingers over here.
His name is Ulysses Anico. He says he was there and saw what happened to his friend. He later told his story to the district attorney.
When the police, after he break his fingers, throw him here, boom, he banged his head on the door. That's his blood. After throwing Kiko here, Kiko was asking for her, for his life. No me mate, no me mate, please don't kill me.
He says this is where Garcia, unarmed and offering no resistance, was shot and killed by Officer O'Keefe.
That's his blood, right here.
Call for help in the 3490. I have a dispute with a knife.
Oh, man.
Police officers Clayton Bullock and Scott McHugh have a different view of Jose Kiko Garcia, the man shot by Officer O'Keefe.
This guy's a wanted, convicted drug dealer. Here they putting a good cop. And they slandering him, putting his name all over the paper, trying to make him seem like a bad guy. And little Mr. Innocent over here. Meanwhile, this guy's a convicted drug dealer, wanted.
The two officers say that to understand the riots that followed Garcia's death, you first have to understand the streets of Washington Heights.
I heard from facts that I know from being around here on the street. A lot of guys, a lot of people were paid to do that.
Paid to riot?
Paid to riot. This is known to be the drug capital of New York, and the violence due to the influx of drugs that's up here is really perpetual as far as anything. Any given moment we could be sitting here, we got to rush out here, the shots fired, shooting, any given night. We just
shot around the corner, you have somebody shot right in front of you.
Yeah.
Just going around the corner.
Violence is routine on the streets they patrol. 1 week after Garcia was killed, there was another shooting in broad daylight over drugs. Semi-automatic weapons fired, 3 dead, including this man on the sidewalk. They were all Dominicans, but there is more to this street story than meets the eye. Because when their bodies were sent home for burial, all 3 came to the same place in the Dominican Republic, San Francisco de Macorís, Kiko Garcia's hometown. The cross in this cemetery stands over the sign that says it all. Este es uno de los caminos de las drogas. It means this is one of the roads that leads from drugs. Many young men from the Dominican Republic leave for the United States with dreams of wealth and adventure. But within the last year, at least 160 of them have returned in coffins. Number 161 was the man shot dead on that Washington Heights sidewalk.
Tenemos informes de que muchos se dedican allá We have information that when drug dealers from San Francisco de Macorís are in the United States, they are dedicated to what is called tumbe. That means they kill each other over drug territory.
He is a high-ranking Dominican police official. We agreed not to reveal his identity because he works undercover.
When one looks at the city of San Francisco de Macorís, one sees mansions, satellite dishes, big expensive cars, in a country where the average per capita income is a little more than $600 a year. How could this be?
As the sale of drugs is so profitable in the United States, most of these Dominican organizations send the money that they make by selling drugs to the city of San Francisco de Macorís. This money is invested in luxury homes as well as luxury vehicles. They buy big businesses as well as farms.
And when the dead drug dealers return to San Francisco de Macorís, they are buried with respect and honor. And many of their crypts are marked with pictures that seem to capture that air of defiance. And in this same cemetery where so many drug dealers are buried lies Jose Kiko Garcia, the man whose death sparked the riots in Washington Heights.
Kiko didn't belong to that group. It hurts me. It hurts me so much that they call him a drug dealer.
Garcia's mother and his sister Alicia remember a hard-working young man who only wanted to get an honest job and help support his family.
Did he sell drugs?
You can tell by the conditions that we live in here and by the conditions that we live in New York. All you have to do is look, and you can see that Kiko was not involved in that kind of business.
The Garcia family also points to Kiko's funeral, which they say was not typical for a drug dealer, but was a protest. They say Kiko was unarmed, even though the police say they found a gun on his body.
If Kiko did not have a gun, where do you think the gun came from?
No, los policías, porque nosotros fuimos al cuartel y ellos cargan dos policías.
The same night that they killed Kiko, we went to the police department, and every policeman we saw had 2 guns on them. We think that the revolver was put on Kiko.
We stand behind Officer O'Keefe fully and completely and know that ultimately he will be exonerated.
Phil Caruso is the head of the Policemen's Union.
All right, let's put it in perspective. Mr. Garcia was an illegal alien to start with. He was a convicted felon who had been convicted of selling drugs. He was carrying a loaded gun at the time of his death.
So who's right? Was Jose Kiko Garcia murdered, or was it a justifiable police shooting? Here's what we do know. Garcia was convicted of selling drugs 3 years ago. He was on probation. At the time of his death, he had cocaine in his body. And there are other questions. What were the circumstances that led up to the shooting? Was Officer O'Keefe in a life-threatening situation? Did he have to kill Garcia?
When you see what's happened to Officer O'Keefe, you feel he got a negative rap. Would you hesitate in a situation?
No way. The most important thing about this job is going home today.
Bottom line.
No matter what?
No matter what.
When something like that happens, though, you're not thinking what's going to happen after this. You're only thinking about what's happening this very second. You know, you're not worried about what is the press going to do to me.
You have to make a decision on whether to live and die. And nobody can call it, but everybody can be a Monday morning quarterback. When you're out there, things happen. You got to do what you got to do.
I don't think it's surprising that other officers stand behind a police officer that they feel has put his life on the line for them.
Robert Baum is in charge of the Criminal Defense Division of the Legal Aid Society of New York City.
I've been practicing law for 21 years. I've handled thousands and thousands of criminal cases. I have heard complaints from many individuals that I have represented that police officers have planted guns on them. Some of those allegations were just too credible for me to dismiss.
Baum says his office reviewed gun and drug cases in which O'Keefe was the arresting officer and found that several of them had to be dismissed because of problems with the evidence. There is an uneasy peace on the streets of Washington Heights these days. The police and the community eye each other suspiciously as the war between rival drug gangs continues to claim lives.
It's going to get real bad. Badder than it is. It's already bad. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
Honest, hard-working Dominicans like Regina Garcia say they are the ones caught in the middle between the dealers and the police, and they are the ones who suffer the most. This is the place where my son Kiko slept, she says. I feel alone now. I'm dying. I'm dying. Meanwhile, in the Dominican Republic, the children of San Francisco de Macorís say they will never stop trying to come to the United States.
It's a gamble. Some of us will come back with a lot of money, and some of us will come back dead.
A grand jury is now investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of Kiko Garcia. New York City officials, meanwhile, are reaching out to the Washington Heights Dominican community. They're concerned about the reaction if the neighborhood does not agree with the grand jury's finding. We'll be back in a moment.